And this is a game where each player is going to be playing as a different board game publisher, trying to create and publish games. And this is a worker placement game at its core, and you're going to have a main board with a bunch of different worker placement spots in order for you to gain the different resources like inspiration, time, or money, as well as the needed skills and mechanisms, box art, and components in order to put those games together. Players start the game with a few basic workers that are going to allow them to start making progress towards their goals. But like I said, there's a bunch of different actions in this game, and some of those actions are just going to be helping you gain the different resources that I just mentioned. But there are other actions that actually allow you to recruit new specialists onto your team by gaining one of their employee cards. Once you actually have an employee card, there's another action that you can perform in order to play it to your table. And this is where all your ideas come together and you start creating one of your games that you're going to be publishing. But what's cool about this is that each of these employees can have different abilities and specialties, and whenever you assign them to the table, you're going to be gaining the associated benefit at that table, but you're also going to be gaining them as a new worker, and you'll be able to put them out on the board, taking advantage of their special abilities to get certain bonuses if you use them for particular actions. Not only this, but there's also actions that can gain you skill cards that you can use to further upgrade your specialists. And then there's also just cards that can grant you with different special actions, but one of the main actions that you're going to be performing in this game is to actually get a board game box that you're going to be putting in the center of your table. You can only have one of these at a time, but once you have that box in front of you, you're going to be using your employees in order to try and get the appropriate mechanisms and components in order to make that game worth as much as possible. Different components and mechanisms will require different skill sets of your employees, with, of course, the more difficult ones being worth a little bit more. This means that the more you invest into a game, the more it's going to be worth, but there is a little bit of an optimization problem here since you can only work on one game at a time. You might just want to get one out of the door so that you can get the benefits of that game and then move on to your next one as you're building up your engine, which is going to allow you to make that next game a little bit easier. Once you actually complete a game, you'll be able to choose the box cover to close it up and lock in those victory points, but there are also some different objectives that players can try to complete by getting certain combinations of box, mechanism, and component, which will allow them to complete certain challenges in order to gain additional rewards and victory points. Another thing that's neat about the worker placement in this game is that players don't automatically get their workers back at the end of the round. Instead, there's a specific action that players can perform in order to get all their workers back. But anytime that you do this, you're going to be moving the hourglass backwards on the score track, which is going to be speeding up the end of the game. But also, anytime that you get your workers back, you also get to use prediction cards to try and predict the actions that you think your opponents are going to take. This is why it's always important to pay attention to your competitors in the market, because if your predictions are correct and your opponents use the actions that you predicted them to before the next time that you call back your workers, then you're going to be gaining some additional benefits for that round. This means that you might want to stretch out your actions to try and let that happen, but if your predictions are really good and those actions happen very quickly, then that just gives you more freedom to call back your workers a little bit sooner. But the game continues like this over a series of rounds, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game. And if you are interested in this one, you can check it out. I'll have it linked down below.